Having a quorum present, I'll call to order the September 12th meeting of the Historic Landmarks Commission. First item on the agenda is public comment. Is any member of the public wish to speak to the Commission on an item that is not on our agenda today? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and go to approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of August 29th, 2012. Have a motion?
Second.
Motion by Boucher, second by Sharp. Under discussion, Ms. Arias. Any additions, corrections, or clarifications?
Page 3, the conditions of the motion on 1130 Milpa Street. Item number A, it should read, the proposed 18-foot wide pedestrian walkway is appropriate, but should be constructed or designed in a manner to preserve the oak trees. And then a new sentence, the oaks are important to the ambience of the county bowl.
Okay.
Do you get it? Okay.
Anything else, Ms. Arias?
Well, that's one.
Okay. How about anyone else? I have just a few minor ones on page 4. Item number 3, the proper syntax of Eucalyptus corymbia citriodora is corymbia, parenthesis, Eucalyptus, parenthesis, citriodora. There are other that's a minor thing, but we might as well get it right. It occurs other places in the minutes as well. Page 5, same item, number 3. Public comment, number 6. W. Scott Burns, former Parks and Recreation Commission member. They're not a committee, they're a commission. Page 6, item 4. Under public comment, Mary Louise Days, local historian, spoke in support of the designation and spoke of likelihood of mission period archaeological remains. Under the motion, number 1, same item, same page. Regardless of the property owner's attendance or absence at the September 12th HLC. Same page, item number 5. I'm not sure that's the correct last name for Anthony, the presenter. Somebody help me out. Page 4, excuse me, it is correct. Page 6, item 5. Anthony Grumbine, that's correct? Okay. Page 7, item 6, under the motion, number 2. There should be no exposed drip screed between the stucco and paving. So strike the word separation, page 7, item 6, under the motion, number 2. Okay, motion.
Could you restate that? And actually, that was exactly what was said. But
I understand.
A little bit more,
Yeah.
clarification's good.
Okay.
So exposed.
How Phil is saying it. It needs to be corrected. So
No, that's good. But
Okay.
I just want you to repeat.
So there
it.
should be no exposed drip screed between the stucco and paving. Next, motion number 3.
there should be no exposed slab. There should be no gap between. There should be only a minimal gap between the stucco and the paving. 1/8 inch code minimum gap between the stucco and the paving.
Okay, so are you changing the same item again then?
Yes,
Number 2?
yes, please. Yes, please.
Can you restate it?
That there shall be a minimum, code minimum gap between the bottom of the stucco and the paving surface.
Don't we want to say code maximum?
There shall be code minimum.
Okay.
between bottom of the stucco and,
The paving, top of paving. Top of paving, or paving.
The code is,
Okay, number three, study adding landscape, perhaps a vine, to soften the building. So strike the words to provide a breakup and. Number six, study the lighting that may be proposed. Got it? Page 9, item number 9. Under the people present, Bill Lavoie, Eric Gabrielson. I don't think Betty was here. Am I in? Betty was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The whole thing.
Betty was? Oh. Sorry, Betty. Page 11, item number 11, under the motion, number 4. I don't think this is really what we want to say, but if it was said, we need to clarify it. Study a more creative apartment complex plan. The proposed design is too plain.
Actually,
What do we mean?
I think Bill made that comment. We didn't want it to look like an apartment, right? I mean, you thought it was.
The word village was mentioned.
You thought it was too much of an apartment looking. That's what I remember.
I'm fine if you want to leave it that way, but it just doesn't, not
History.
at all. And this is an important project. We need to be clear. So I don't have a suggestion.
study a more creative plan.
Just strike out the apartment.
Okay, so the number 4 should say study a more creative plan.
Yes.
Okay? Number 7,
And the,
yes.
I think
make it plain.
we should say a more creative plan that is, as I remember, the whole discussion was about the compatibility with the Arlington building. So really, to me, that statement has to do with the Arlington theater. But anyway.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the commission? Come on. Okay, then I'm just going to leave it at study a more creative plan, period. End of sentence. Number 7,
So the proposed design is too plain, should I leave it?
strike it. Restudy, number 7, restudy increasing ground excavation to achieve lower building heights. Number 8, proportion method needs to be studied. I'm not sure what that means. If I don't know what it means, I can't imagine the applicant will. Proportion
Yeah.
method.
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
Anyone?
Actually, I was in discussion. I was talking about the proportion method used on the interior. So I would say the proportion method used in the interior streetscape needs to be studied for its use on this proposal.
I mean, the interior of the Arlington.
The interior of the Arlington.
We should be clear about that.
Okay, I understand now. So the proportion method that is exemplified on the interior of the Arlington Theater
Should be utilized.
should be utilized for this project. Does that make sense?
Yes, and then, comma, in that the design is emulating that of the interior, according to their architect.
That was their proposal.
That was their
They
proposal.
mentioned that.
Yeah.
in that the design is emulated.
Emulating.
It's the design of the interior. And you can, I guess, open parents, SIC, closed parents, because that's according to their architect.
Okay, are you ready? Number 9, study reestablishing a connection between the historic gate and the pedestrian path. I obviously should not be reviewing the minutes. Takes too long.
Actually, not studied, reestablish a connection.
Established, okay.
And, Mr. Chair, I would
was the direction.
request that when these comments are given during the meeting, that they are detailed a little bit better, because I'm checking the minutes according to what I write down as you say it, and a lot of these comments were exactly what was said. So,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain 8 and 9.
Wait a minute, one person at a time. Drury. The whole minutes he's abstaining from. Commissioner Murray.
Abstaining from item 1.
Murray is abstaining from item 1. Commissioner Lavoy.
Abstain 8 and 9.
Thank you. 8 and 9. Moving on to the consent calendar. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Gantz.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We only had 2 items today. Item A at 101 East Victoria Street was final approval as submitted. And item B at 2132 Mission Ridge Road was also final approval as submitted, and those were both reviewed by Commissioner Sharp.
Thank you, Commissioner Sharp, for taking time to review the consent calendar. Anybody want to make a motion to ratify?
So moved.
We have a motion by Arias, a second by Winnick. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Abstain on B.
Lavoy abstains on item B. Okay, moving on to announcements or requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
No announcements except for Commissioner Schallenberger being absent.
I will be stepping down on item number 5. Mr. Lavoy.
I will be stepping down on item number 5 also. And leaving the meeting at that time.
Any other announcements from anyone? Okay, subcommittee reports.
I would like to report on being upset about an item on the agenda of the sign committee. The Wells Fargo, that is kitty corner from the courthouse. A bright red sign was approved on consent without anybody even discussing it with me as a member of the sign committee and a representative of this group on the sign committee. And it doesn't matter to me whether they were redoing their logo or whatever. A bright red, rebranded, thank you. I feel that what was approved is not appropriate to the location.
Who reviewed it?
The person who reviews the consent conforming signs.
I'm not sure I understand. So it's a Wells Fargo rebranding sign where?
On
Corner of Figueroa and Anacapa.
and Anacapa.
And it was approved on conforming.
Yes, and I felt that it was an important enough location that I should at least have been part of the discussion. So I'm ticked.
Mr. Lamone, do you have anything to add to that?
We don't want our commissioners upset. So part of our conforming process, if you remember, is that the conforming signs are read into the record at consent calendars. So that would be your opportune time to raise objection to the approval. So I don't know if we did that. If we didn't then that could be a problem, where you don't discover there was a conforming review until after the sign is installed. So we'll look at the timing.
I'm not sure that it's been installed. I just understand that it's been
Okay,
approved.
so we'll look into the timing, and if we can pull it up to the consent calendar where you're involved, we will do so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any other subcommittee reports? I have just one. On September 6th, I attended the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting of the Parks and Recreation Department. They discussed but did not make any motion or determination on the library trees. They also spoke about the Morton Bay Fig Tree Park, and we did a site visit. If you remember the Eugenia Grove that was there that had to be removed. We talked about what the mitigating tree should be or what the mitigation should be for the removal. Came to a determination that I think it was 1 or 2 additional canopy trees next to the parking lot would be sufficient. We also talked about lantana spacing.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
do you want to report on the meeting with the,
Yes. Also, Commissioner Arias and I, along with members of ABR, attended a meeting regarding the mitigation landscaping, off-site landscaping for the Salinas Street off-ramp. If you remember correctly, there's a section of freeway median between basically Garden Street and Chapala that Caltrans is going to beef up as part of mitigation for the loss of median landscaping down at Salinas. We reviewed the palette and placement. We had several suggestions, so you don't need to know all those, but it will probably be coming to the commission at some point in the future. Anything else? Okay, then we're on to item number 1, which is a historic structures report for 33 East Canyon Perdido. Ms. Hernandez?
I reviewed this very carefully, went through it in several items with the historian. We made changes in this final version. I agree that those court's conclusions that the project meets the state CEQA guidelines of the MEA and relevant Secretary of Interior standards and will not result in negative adverse impacts to the historic resource.
Okay. Do you have anything additional you wish to present?
Thank you, Alexander Cole. Are you talking with
No.
Cole?
I'm talking to you, Ms. Cole.
Why, thank you, sir. Alexander Cole, architectural historian. No, I have nothing.
Okay.
Just if you had questions
Okay.
or comments.
Is there any public comment on this? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and go to the commission for questions. Anyone?
Chair?
Yes, Mr. Drury, Commissioner Drury.
Yes, on page 10 of the report, item number 2, the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved, but the historic character is the sloping walkway, despite the fact of plans by George Washington Smith. So how do those two things jive? The fact that the existing historical structure is that sloping walkway, but there are plans that show that there were steps contemplated at one time.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Drury. I know you were having trouble with this one. It had to do with, yes, the sloping path is historic. B, that's A. B, we needed to do the ADA access, and that required doing something to level out the terrace. And so it had to do partly with current requirements for ADA. And so therefore, what we were trying to do is make it as much like G.W. Smith as we could. And that's why when we went back to look at the original drawings, we could see, yes, indeed, there was a terrace. So that was, rather than just doing ADA and so forth, we decided we wanted to go and use one of G.W. Smith's, at least his idea.
And this may just be a question for later, but it's not just the fact that there's going to be steps and a railing, but there's additional things besides planned to surround the steps at the top. So would that be considered a justifiable change under these guidelines?
That seemed like a justifiable change because, again, looking at those plans from 1923, he did have, he called it an esplanade. With that, he did have that kind of a wall. And so that, again, is what we were pulling from, as much from his design as we possibly could, as opposed to creating it out of whole cloth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Questions? Commissioner Murray? No. Okay. Comments? Let's start with Commissioner Winnick. Any comments?
Sorry. Silence myself. I actually share the same concern that Commissioner Drury, I guess I shouldn't say actually, but shares about the losing of the sloped walkway. I mean, I think it's, I don't know, I've been through cases before where there are things that define a building that are character defining, and although this wasn't perhaps the last drawing that George Washington Smith did, it is what was built.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the defining element at the Libero Theater. So I guess I would love to see another way that it could be solved. I realize it's a historic structures report, so it's more about whether or not
It addresses it.
it addresses it. So I guess my concern is I'm having a hard time reconciling that it has in fact addressed it. So I don't know how better to state
Okay.
that.
Commissioner Orias?
Oh, well, I agree with Commissioner Drury.
Okay. Commissioner Lavoie, anything to add?
No, I agree with Commissioner Winnick. And probably would add that a mitigation needs to be identified.
Commissioner Murray?
I agree with the report. I think this is a very difficult kind of fine interpretation. And I just feel that we are very fortunate to have the Washington Smith's plans to guide us on how to do the new steps. I've read the report. I really appreciate all the research that went to it, because to me it's trying to address new needs and yet at the same time really staying true to the formality of this front. I think this was meant to be a very formal way, and I like the way the plan is responding to those arches. I think the arches to me are more important than the slope in the way you express the building. So that's my position on the report.
So would you essentially be saying that the sloped brick walkway is not character defining? Or is that what I'm hearing?
It's not that it's not character defining. It's how you make changes that are respecting that. So to me, it's not destroying the character defining it. It is altering it in such a way that it honors the original intent. So to me, nothing is lost, but at the same time, responding to new needs.
Okay, so no mitigation is necessary?
I don't think so.
Okay, in your opinion. Commissioner Sharp?
I agree with that and have nothing further to add.
Agree with Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Boucher? And Commissioner Drury, do you agree with yourself?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lavoie?
I mean, I would be satisfied with the mitigation being just photographic documentation of the existing condition.
Ms. Murray, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, that's
Okay. Other commissioners feel okay?
Yes.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion with that condition?
I move to accept the report.
With the following comments?
What are those following comments? I'm sorry, I got lost.
The report shall address the loss of the sloped brick walkway with photo documentation.
Thank you, sir.
That work?
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Drury, second by Sharp. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? You're opposed? Commissioner Winnick is opposed. Can you just give us a brief reason?
I still feel that it's character defining.
Thank you. Okay. Did I do everything? That's it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is item number 2, and that is a public hearing for 2300 Garden Street. This is a review of a staff report and public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution to recommend to City Council that the St. Anthony's Seminary Complex and Grounds be designated a city landmark. This item was continued from the August 29th, 2012 public hearing. Ms. Hernandez.
Yes, I added several things to the report, the revised report that we discussed at the meeting on the 29th. I added to the resolution a new whereas the landscaping was remained consistent with 1901 when the subdivision opened, and that includes the large open lawn area below the main building, a series of palms planted in front of the main building, and a rough-faced ashlar retaining wall in front of the main building. This is a view of it today. This is the view of it when it was first constructed, and there are palms along here, and here's this sandstone wall. I also...
Can you hold on one second, Ms. Hernandez? We're having a microphone problem. We can't really hear you. Okay, go ahead, please.
I also added to the report, I called out some character-defining plantings that I found. One was this large Norfolk pine and this redwood in the that towers over the campus. The whole campus is in the designation, so any changes to landscaping will come before you. And we also discussed the status of the temporary fencing, and I did discuss that with the representative of the owner, and they are going to be working with Alex Cole to come up with appropriate permanent fencing once the construction is done. The temporary fencing is there until the construction is complete, and that final fencing has been discussed. I also added that this property also qualifies under Criterion J, as it's a potential for yielding significant information of archaeological interest. St. Anthony's was once part of the Mission Santa Barbara lands. Based on surface observations, historic maps, photographs, and the results of an archaeological excavations, there is evidence that there are locations on St. Anthony's campus considered to be in archaeological data potential from early mission days. And I think that answered most of the questions you had.
Okay, questions from the commission? I have a, public comment, yeah. Can I just ask one quick question? I've been dying to. The Norfolk Island star pine that you're showing on page 7.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
This one?
Araucaria heterophylla, yes. Is that not the same that's shown in the 1925 photo on page 9?
I thought it was different because this one's across the little roadway, and then the other one, it's right next to the entrance. We were...
Yeah.
I think originally it had Norfolk pines on either side of the front entrance.
It does, yeah.
Even in the earthquake, right after the earthquake, and those aren't here anymore, see?
Yeah.
In this current... And the other one is across the little roadway.
Okay, yeah, I take that. Because the palms are almost in the exact same location.
Yeah, right.
Versus the
right.
signatures. Okay.
So neither of those pines are there anymore.
Very good. I will open public comment. Seeing no speaker slips, I will... Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on this item? Anyone? No one? I'll close public comment. Move on to questions from the commission. Any additional questions? Comments? I'll make a comment. I think it's a very good report. It certainly encompasses all of the questions and desires that we directed Ms. Hernandez to pursue. So thank you, Ms. Hernandez, for altering the report and making it more complete.
Mr. Chair, we have the owner present.
Are they going to give a presentation? I see nobody in front of me, so...
We thank you for continuing it so we could review it.
That's all you need to say? Okay.
Yes, I just
Mr.
wanted, we were assuming that the property owner would have some type of comments, but we've just informed that they just wanted an opportunity to review the documentation.
Okay. Apparently so. Okay, so...
Mr. Chair, I
yes.
move that we adopt the resolution recommending that City Council hold a public hearing to consider landmark designation St. Anthony Seminary complex and grounds at 2300 Garden Street. Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the resolution recommending that City Council hold a public hearing to consider landmark designation of St. Anthony's Seminary complex and grounds at 2300 Garden Street.
I'll say.
Okay, we have a motion by Lavoy, a second by Winnick. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Under discussion.
I just want to extend this extremely special thank you to the owner to go along with this nomination that has been a long, long time coming, and also to thank them enormously for all the preservation work that they put into the seminary, and that we will continue to work with them to complete the project.
All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Boucher.
I would just like to agree with those comments and also make my own comments that this has been a long time coming.
Okay.
And if anything, it is really overdue, so I support this designation.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Lavoy.
Murray's comments could be added to my motion, please.
Okay. Did you catch those? I interrupted you, Ms. Gans, so I don't know. Ms. Gans is indicating yes, she has those comments. And it's okay with the seconder. I did already. And then we had a discussion started by Ms. Murray. So I'll call the question if you'd like again. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item number 3, scheduled for 2:20 p.m. This is 403 Loma Alta Drive. Do we have an applicant?
Yes.
Okay, this is a proposal to construct a new 162-square-foot detached carport with 334 square feet of permeable paving to replace the garage that was demolished without the required permits. Also proposed on this 2,300-square-foot parcel is to permit an as-built 6-foot-tall fence with gate at the northwest corner, and to remove an unpermitted storage shed, patio cover, and laundry hookups. Really, laundry hookups are under our purview? No. New floor area is proposed in the existing 2,345-square-foot single-family dwelling. Okay, if you please give your name for the record and a brief presentation.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Cindy Souter. I'm agent for the owner, Scarlett El-Kazan, Zen. And this is Tony Zikas, the designer.
Okay, please, designer.
Welcome.
Thank you.
This project has a little bit of history to it, so I'll just do a brief overview, and then we'll start talking about the actual nuts and bolts of what's before you today. But this is, the address is 403 Loma Alta. The front entry is off of Loma Alta. It's at the corner of Loma Alta and Weldon Road, which is just up from Cliff Drive and kind of kitty corner across the street from McKenzie School on the Mesa. And this was designated in 1995 as a landmark as the Carl Oscar Borg House. The current owner actually asked for that designation for the property, so she did that. It's a Mission Pueblo revival style structure is what they've determined it to be, and it was inspired by an old Helona Zuni Pueblo in New Mexico. Mr. Borg, the artist that lived there, he built the house in 1918 and lived there until 1925, and then after then it changed hands several times. But he traveled all over the country and all Europe as well. But he was very inspired by the Southwest, hence building the house in that style. Not part of the original construction, but at some point in time, a one-car garage was built in this corner of the property.
Mr. Chair, can we have the pointer?
I lost it. I have the cheap pointer.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
There we go.
Here, all right. Can you see?
Yeah, thank you.
So at some point in time, not as part of the original construction, but sometime, after cars, obviously. A wooden one-car garage was built here in this back corner of the property, and the property it's got heavily landscaped with gardens. So I'm imagining the reason they stuck it over here in the back corner was just to have it out of the way. So over time, the garage disappeared, was demolished without permits, and now in fall of 2011, the owner put the property on the market for sale, and when they ran the zoning information report, it came back that the covered parking had been removed without a permit, and then it triggered an enforcement case, which is where we are today, of replacing that covered parking that's no longer there. So also in that time, a little wall and gate was constructed right here around what has been functioning as one uncovered parking space. Over time, the original pad is actually still there. So we're proposing a carport. A carport.
Very special to us.
Okay. We're proposing a carport in this area. One, so that the sizing of the walls, the carport can be smaller than a garage. So it would allow these walls and gate to remain, and also more cost effective and a little bit less intrusive of a design with the carport over the solid structure of a garage being put here. And also, we need your comments as well, because this location triggers modifications to the setback, and then the wall, because it's a 6-foot wall, the portion here next to the street is higher than 3.5 feet, so we need your comments on that as well. Mind you, this is on a hillside, so the fact that this is 6 feet tall here really doesn't matter from a traffic safety standpoint, because this is where your views are down here.
Is there any public sidewalk here?
No, the sidewalk's on the other side of the street.
Okay. So continue. Show us what the design of the carport is.
Okay. Okay. We decided to just build a one-car carport. Like Cindy said, that it's a little less intrusive as far as like having a structure right out front there. And I was kind of a little concerned because the house itself is a flat roof structure in the Pueblo style, but it has elements of the Mission style. For the sake of simplicity, I decided to do that in a Mission tile roof and some heavy timbers on there. This is what it looks like with the actual car park there. So there's a lot of foliage around this structure. And so just for the sake of simplicity, I thought I'd just do an open carport like that. I'm thinking of just natural wood timbers and Mission style or Mission tile roof.
Why is this sitting out in a field?
Oh, well, somebody else asked that.
It's the
I had that
rendering.
same question. This is actually the location of it, and this is just to
Express
not
what the
detract from
okay.
What the architecture looks like.
architecture. So we're not going to build it on the field.
But this one's actually superimposed on a photo of where the pad is.
Right.
Mind if I turn the page to
Sure.
get an idea of
Absolutely, yeah.
what the building
So
looks like?
these are photos of the house.
Oh, this is a wonderful house.
One tricky thing in taking photographs of the house is because the landscaping is so heavy and overgrown around the house, it's very difficult to get a shot of just one side of the house.
Yeah,
So
you can't
there's
stand
numerous
far back
pictures
enough.
from around the house. Yes.
Yeah, it is. It
Without
is
something
really tucked
blocking
into
you.
the landscape there.
This is the existing condition.
That's the front
This
gate.
is the front gate off of Loma Alta, right here.
This is close to the Hunt Stombach.
And this is the
That's the front door.
the front door. And you can see how the gates mimic.
You guys know where that is?
Right. You've probably never seen it because you can't see it from the street. Right?
There actually was a question that might warrant some further discussion, but it's fairly close to the Hunt Stombach house,
Is
correct?
that the big Victorian?
With the cupola, the widow's walk?
Yeah.
Which is located approximately in that location.
Right about there, yeah.
So the corners of those properties almost touch.
And yes,
Yeah.
they do touch.
They do touch.
They do touch that one back corner. Okay.
Okay.
That's what I thought when I was doing my noticing.
Just a point of reference for everybody. I think I heard a bunch of ohs when. Wow. Okay.
Those are photos of the violations.
Okay.
So the violations, I wasn't clear what the violations are. Is the wall or
The wall and gate are violations, right?
It's the construction of the wall and gate without permits, and because it's in the front yard setback exceeding 3.5 feet, and then the removal of the covered parking. And there was also
And then
a
the
patio
laundry
cover and
hookups.
some laundry hookups, and a shed, but that's all been taken care of. But they're part of the scope of work just to clear it up.
Okay. All right. Pretty much your presentation done?
Yeah.
Okay. Any additional questions by the commission? Commissioner Winnick?
Just one question. I don't know if you have photos of
What the car structure looked like beforehand.
No, we just have a Sanborn map.
Yeah, we just have the
Right.
footprint on Sanborn maps, and even at the History Museum, they have no record of it, and they didn't have a record of it when she went through the landmark process either, so nobody really knows,
All right.
except that it was wooden.
Yeah.
That, you know it was wooden. Okay, so that was my follow-up question, was what were the materials, if you knew?
When was that removed?
in the Sanborn map? What year is that in the Sanborn map?
What year would that be?
When's the last Sanborn map? 56?
55.
65? I'm dyslexic, so it
63?
could be either one.
We have a number
Something.
on
But
60.
earlier ones, it wasn't there.
In the I didn't actually look at it. I just went by what staff told me. But I know the Sanborn maps came after the house was constructed, and it shows up in those, but it doesn't show up. It wasn't part of the original construction when you look at the street file.
I see.
Commissioner Rios, any questions?
Yes, a question of staff.
Microphone, please.
I have to reach for one. They won't let me use that, it's noisy. Now I get two. Okay, question of staff. My understanding that single-family houses require 2 parking spaces, 2 covered parking spaces, and this only allows, is answering for 1. Does it still bring it up to current zoning expectations?
I'm going to have to ask someone who does zoning. So I just look at it
Can we
according to the
table or
historic
defer that
standards.
question?
I'll answer it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, typically, houses that are grandfathered in, and if they're not trying to increase the square footage of the property, then they're allowed to just have 1 single covered parking space. And I presume, given the size of this property, you haven't hit 85% FAR.
Yeah.
So if you confirm that, we're good. There you go.
And also, I have a question regarding, my recollection is there's fish pond on this site?
No,
No fish pond.
no, that's the house next door.
The house next door that you belong to the artist?
No. Good afternoon. My name is Scarlett Alcazan. I am the owner of the house, and I'm here to talk about the design. The owner of the house on Loma Alta Drive to the left has the fish pond pool. There was never a fish pond or a pool on my property when I purchased it in 1977. There was no wooden structure, but there was an existing parking space. I am here to, Cindy gave you some information, but in my research of owning the house since 1977, I researched the architectural design because no one could tell me what it was. And so Carl Oskar Borg was inspired by the Zuni Native American Indian tribes that he lived with every spring, every year. He was an artist, and he went there and had permission to paint their tribal ceremonies and their shamans, but he could not photograph anything. And when he wanted the house built, the architectural style was influenced by the Zuni tribes. The interior is small rooms with a very large artist studio and
it's more Victorian in style, because at the turn of the century, both were very popular. Okay. The features of the Zuni the Zuni architectural design are modest. They have simple lines, flat roofs, and are made of natural earth and bricks, and they are natural colors that blend in with the surrounding environment. And this was my hopes in getting the carport, that if you look on the map, the neighbors, well, first of all, the existing parking space is remote from the house. So I had an enclosure built in the rear near the existing parking space that architecturally matches the front entrance. So you have the gate, the two pillars, and it also was for my personal safety as I live there alone, and it's a very large house. So I needed that enclosure to limit and control access, and there are a huge number of people that are very interested in looking at that house over the years.
Invited or not.
Yes, and so I did enclose the rear for that purpose. Now, I also feel with the existing parking space, it is next door to a ranch-style house. So if you're driving up and down Weldon Street, you cannot see my home. You would think that the carport belongs to the house next door, which is very neutral colors of gray and white. So I was thinking to blend the aesthetics of the carport to that house. Otherwise, we have this large, heavy, outstanding outbuilding that doesn't connect with the home. I also am very concerned about the environmental and ecological design and blending it aesthetically in the neighborhood and around me. And on September 6th, I went to a meeting for our neighborhood watch, and Officer Jonathan Rios was there, and his topic was crime prevention through environmental design. So the carport design is perfect for what he was talking about. The issues were the buildings, the landscape, the privacy, the lighting, the owner having access of and limiting and controlling, people coming in and out of the property. If you want any more information on that, you can Google CPTED. And so this is tied in, and it's one of my concerns. Also, since the existing parking space appears to belong to the neighbor on the upside of Weldon, and it cannot be seen from the street, as you can see in Tony's photograph.
These just looking up and down the street photographs.
Yeah, there's an area photo on the first page.
It's recessed back.
It's
And
very
unless you know it's
overgrown.
there or you're looking for it, you would not know that it's there. So carport would blend in and with the vegetation in the house next door. And so I'm hoping that you will realize that I am for the carport, and it complements the Zuni style, which is the original board's preference, and I'm trying to keep within his wishes.
Could you move the microphone just a little bit closer?
Which one is?
That one. Is it 618?
The one directly next door, or
The one directly next door.
It's
That's the
flat
carport.
roof.
That is 814.
814.
Yes, and that has a two-story and it's flat roof.
I don't. What I'm trying to get here is a photograph of that house that's next door and the carport together. Do you have that?
Do you have that?
Otherwise, I'll pull it up on.
Yeah, you can. I don't know. I'll have to look and see what I took
You
when I
wouldn't
met with
have one of
traffic
the
about it.
carport together.
Well, yeah,
Well,
because the
'cause it doesn't
carport, the
exist.
parking space.
Okay.
I have some of.
Right.
It's pretty overgrown between the two properties too, as you can see. So there's a big overgrown section. Here's street view looking up the street and down the street. The whole little area is pretty overgrown. Let's see if I have anything across. Yeah, I don't have anything that includes the property next door and the driveway.
In the picture, the neighbor's property line is in this area, and you can see, once you're up on the parking space, you can actually see their home, ranch style, in white and gray pool colors.
Right, but it is a different property than yours, so that's what's important.
Right. And so in closing, I would like to comply with Carlos Grigori's wishes, continue with the Zuni Native American architecture, and keep the simple design, the sloping to flat roofs, and the unassuming colors.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Does the designer have a photograph of what inspired him that would suggest that this carport design is Zuni inspired?
I don't have photographs. I read the report, and it does reference Mission style, Mission Pueblo revival. And I was kind of dictated by the fact that one structure cannot be seen from the other, and we are veering away from that a little bit because we're trying to stay away from the flat roof on a carport. I think it looked a little top heavy and awkward. So I kind of took my cue from the report.
Okay. Going to show this if City TV can zoom in. I apologize, but hey, it's better than not having anything at all.
Anything at all, yes.
Okay, so here is the driveway in question.
Right.
And I'm going to pan, hopefully nobody gets dizzy. That's the house next door, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank
And
you.
then you can also look down towards the school and see the Spanish architecture down the end of the street.
Okay, well, that's going to make people dizzy.
It's not very zoomy anyways.
All right.
And the daycare center through SBCC is across the street.
We'll continue with questions. Commissioner Lavoie, any more questions?
Chair Sudi, I have more photos from the designation file if you'd like to.
Yes.
I also did a phone consultation with the representative of the owner and read her our guidelines and told her the levels of review she'd have to come through, and then it came straight to your agenda. I didn't see the plan. The plans didn't come back through me till it was already on your agenda. So that's how we got here.
Okay. Commissioner Murray, any questions?
No, I don't have questions.
Nothing of the exterior of the property?
With the carport, I can allow the gate and the enclosure in the rear that matches the gate in the front to stay and give me that security and privacy.
Okay. Commissioner Sharp, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Commissioner Boucher, any questions?
No.
Commissioner Drury?
I just have one. Could you tell me the distance between the corner of the house and the carport? It seems like a good long way.
You mean between here and here?
Uh-huh.
We could scale that.
Ms. Gantz, do you have a scale available?
We don't.
An architectural scale?
30 feet?
I do.
No, the 16th. 16th. So just use a right.
Yeah.
Ways. Okay, it's double of whatever we come up with here.
Yeah, I'm
So
going
it's
30.
about 30, let's call it 30, so it's about 60 feet away.
Yeah.
50?
60.
60. Good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from any commissioners? Let's go to comments. Commissioner Winnick, any comments, please?
reconciling the words with the imagery. Like, I like the description of the project and the idea of using elements that are soft and fit in with the same colorations that are there. But when I look at the presentation, I don't get that vibe at all. So I just feel a disconnect between the intention and the results. So I think this needs more work and development. And maybe, one thing I'll offer, and I know you've set a preference for a wood structure, but maybe the piers could be considered to be masonry and only have the wood structures up above, for instance, because I've seen that in the...
Maybe to emulate.
Yeah, well, the fencing, exactly. You've got masonry piers, and you also have then wood infill, and maybe that might be a good clue. And I understand your notion of marrying it to the house next door. I don't think it really relates to that house either, so I think and if you also want to keep the gate and everything that's right there, which does relate to the house, again, I think maybe the structure should relate to the house, so then it's consistent with the gates and the wall.
Okay. So in concept, you're okay with the carport?
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, I'm okay with the idea of a carport there. I'm not convinced that a pitched roof in this case is the right answer, but, I'm sure it'll come back in front of us. And I also don't object to the idea of the wall staying at 6 feet because there is no sidewalk on that side of the street, and it seems like it is set back far enough. Whereas if there was a sidewalk, I'd be concerned about it. So those are my comments.
Okay. Commissioner Arias?
I have no problems with the carport. I am concerned about the roof line as not being quite suitable for the neighborhood. This area is near and dear to me because it was my financial money that moved the Hunt Stambach house to its site back in 1812. No, I'm kidding. But I did move it. I did move. Louis Doan moved it, and so this area is very near and
action for me.
this area is very near and dear to me, and it was because of me that the Hunt Stambach became a landmark. I have no problems with the 6-foot fence. However, the area is parked up by City College students, and they do walk, and they will be walking in the street, which is a certain element of danger for them, and that is of concern to me. However, I commend you for keeping the house in the manner in which you're doing it. I think that's great. It's a wonderful little neighborhood, and I just think the roof line needs something a little more care. But other than that, I don't have any problems.
Okay. Does any other commissioner have anything different to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Lavoie.
I'd like to express my appreciation to the owner for her evaluation of what she has in a home. It's a lovely home. I've never seen pictures of it up close. And what you said about Zuni-inspired, flat roof, simple, modest, natural materials, I can't think of, I don't have an objection to a carport per se, but I can't think of a carport more inappropriate for that house than the one that's being opposed. And so I would oppose it. I think it needs to have the elements of the house that it's attached to. It needs to emulate those elements and be compatible with the fence and gates that you've put in there, which I think are appropriate to the house. And I would support their retention. But it really needs to have elements that look like it belongs to this house, and it does not. And I would take off the tile roof. I would take off the slope on the roof, for sure. There are other ways of making water shed off a flat roof.
Anybody have anything different to add?
Chair, I would agree with that, with those comments.
Okay. Then I'm going to sum up the comments and look for somebody to make a motion. Study using masonry piers as support for the structure. The carport shall reference elements of the existing house. The Commission can support the existing wall and gate and the concept of the carport. Study the concept of a carport. Correct, that's good. Study the pitch of the roof, perhaps making it a flat roof. Does anybody like those?
Not study.
Oh. The pitch of the roof shall be a flat roof.
is more appropriate for the house.
Okay. How about this? A flat roof is more appropriate for the house.
It really needs to say.
Or the carport.
Overall, the style of this new carport needs to be compatible in the feeling of the house. In other words, when you see the new carport, you're going to say this belongs to this house.
So
in design, in roofs, we're not going to tell you what kind of roof or whatever. It needs to. When you look at it, you're going to say this carport was built as if it was part of this house.
So is the statement that the carport shall reference elements of the existing house, is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Including its flat roof.
Including its flat roof. Okay. Would you?
We'll start over.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if it'll make it simpler for you, I can fully support what Commissioner Lavoie presented. Like, his comments were a little more clarified than mine, and I can support those. So since you had two groups of comments there, you could strike mine and just go with his, and maybe that'll give you the clarity.
Okay. So
I'm tongue-tied today.
let me okay, here we go. So we have study using masonry piers as support for the structure. The commission can support the existing wall and gate and the concept of a carport. And last, the carport shall reference elements of the existing house, including its character-defining elements, especially the flat roof. Does that work?
That's clear for me.
Everybody good with that one?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody want to make a motion? We have a motion by Boucher and a second by Arias.
What's the motion?
I don't know. That's not my
2
responsibility.
weeks is good. Yeah, this is an enforcement case, so we need to stay on it.
So it's a 2-week continuance with those comments. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? You guys understand the motion, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time.
Did I open public comment? Maybe I didn't. No. Go ahead. You need to come up to the microphone. Sorry. State your name for the record.
I just want to mention
Please.
my name is Kathleen Barnato, and I'm her realtor. And I'll be there tomorrow from 10 to 12 if you'd like to come by and see this beautiful home.
Oh.
I'll be there on the weekend as well on Sunday. Thank you.
What are you serving?
There's always a catch, right?
Okay. We need to reopen this item. I need to open public comment. Any public comment other than the realtor? I will close public comment. This item is continued 2 weeks with comments already made. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. My bad.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Time.
much. Thank you.
You're a good steward.
This is
Thank
That's
you.
yours.
Thank you.
No, we've got our copy.
We only need one.
Honey, are these your copy?
Susan, you got a copy?
No.
There's a whole slug of them.
Archives, yeah.
Susan, did you get a copy of the plans?
These are hers. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
There, and
We're 10 minutes ahead of schedule. I'm going to ask for a recess, please. We are in recess.
News Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Yes, the strong get more, while the weak ones fade. Empty pockets don't ever make the grade. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Lots of But when you're gone and spending ends, they don't come no more. Rich relations give crust of bread and such. You can help yourself, but don't take too much. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Money, you've got lots of friends. They're crowded round your door. But when you're gone and spending ends, they don't come no more. Rich relations give crust of bread and such. You can help yourself, but don't take too much. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. He just don't worry about nothing, 'cause he's got his own. Yes, he's got his own.
What am I here for? What am I here for? What does my living all mean? Where am I going? What am I doing? What is this pause in between? Wonder why you wonder about tomorrow morn. Every day's a new day. It'll come sure as you're born. What am I here for? What am I here for? Maybe I'm doing it now. Where do I come from? Where am I going? Ain't none of my business, no how. What's the use of wondering? Long as you're alive. Well, that's what I'm here for. I know what I'm here for. I'm just along for the ride. What am I here for? I know what I'm here for. I'm just along for the ride.
ready to... We'll call the HLC meeting back to order, and item number 4 is 1321 Alameda Padre Serra. You want to introduce yourselves for the record, please?
Sure. Lisa Plowman, Piker Group Architects. April Palencia, Piker Group Architects.
Thank you.
Okay.
And your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. We had asked for continuance last week because we were still working with the middle school on finding a possible solution. When we left our meeting a month ago, there was the direction to look at using some sort of landscaping to cover the conduit, which we were very much in favor of and had originally proposed to the fire department, which they had said no to. Well, we went back to Ann Marks. Our landscape architect talked to her as well as April Palencia, and they were adamant that they would not allow any kind of landscaping on that wall there because of the high fire hazard. And I know that Ann Marks agreed to talk to the chair about their perspective. So we then had to sort of go back to the drawing board and think about what other solutions might be available. So we've come up with an alternative solution. The school is still interested in seeing if the HLC would be open to the metal shroud just because it's less expensive and takes less funding away from the other improvements that they're making that you had already reviewed to abate some of the noise and visual issues that the neighbors had with the school. So we wanted to put both options before the HLC, have you look at them, and then obviously it'll be a discussion, but we'll want to hear your perspective and sort of leave it to the HLC as to how we might proceed. But the secondary solution I think is quite nice, but it is significantly more expensive than the original solution. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to April, and we do have some photographs actually. I forgot to mention. The pepper tree that was part of the original landscape plan that you approved has been planted up on APS in the gap where there was between an oak tree and another pepper. Its canopy is quite small right now, but we anticipated it will grow to a similar size as the adjacent canopy, which would then, we were going to draw on that, April?
Oh, right.
Yeah. Which would expand that canopy, which would do a significant amount of screening from APS, depending on where you were as you're driving by or walking by. So if you're standing in front of the tree, obviously it screens it, but if you move off to the left of that tree, you can see it, but at some point that canopy will cover that area.
Imagine that.
Yeah. So April, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead, April.
Yeah, good afternoon. So I've just brought two blown-up pictures of the black and white photos at the bottom of the sheet here, just so you can see again what the view is from the parking lot and again from APS at the sidewalk. And the elevation shown on the lower left-hand corner of the sheet is just indicating a very simple and straightforward plaster shroud that would require actually extending the, I even have an image of what that looks like, extending the roof, waterproofing, framing, plaster out over the conduit, and then just detailing it very simply with a few corbels at the edges and around that exit door. And we've just brought that down to the top of the switchgear enclosure and made it as clean as possible to just provide the concealment requested by the HLC and kept with the materials of the building.
Okay. Are there any questions from anyone?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Lavoie.
if I'm reading this right, this does not conceal the vertical conduit?
It conceals approximately half of the vertical runs of the conduit. We felt that it would be kind of staggered to draw it down over the remaining portion.
I have a question. Mm-hmm. You say you're bringing it down to the top of the switchgear, and yet there seems to be some plaster above the door to this new soffit. And I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And yet in this photograph, they appear to line up very closely anyway.
I think that this photo sim, this shadow has accidentally concealed the top of the door. You're correct that the door in the switchgear line up, so that soffit line would come all the way to the top of the door header.
And you would be building out 12 or 18 inches of new tile?
It's
or-
approximately, I'm calling it plus or minus 9 inches, yeah, depending on what the field conditions are there, yeah.
How far up in the wall does the switchgear cabinet protrude?
I don't have that number. No, I don't show that. I don't show a
Appears to be.
elevation from that side.
Okay, all right.
18 or 24 inches, I would guess.
At least.
Yeah.
Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this at this point? Seeing none, I'll take it back to the commission for comments. Mr. Winnick?
Look at you.
I don't know why I'm the designated guy for that.
You can't sit on the end.
No, but sometimes, they'll go back to my colleague, Mr. Drury. So, well, first of all, I mean, I think you guys have done an awful lot, just overall, in terms of your attention to trying to develop the site and make it really, a really good school site, putting in the resources. I also drive by quite often and slowed down and stopped the other day when I was on APS just to see how visible this is. And I have to admit, unless one really goes out of their way to look for it, you really don't notice it from APS. I just want to put that in the context. I guess, I could support the solution. I'm concerned, the concern I have is just about by extending the tile out on the roof, I'm concerned that that won't be able to be executed really well, and that one will see that line of demarcation in terms of new and old tile. And I know that, one could say we'll use reclaimed tile or whatever, but to me, that it's how to execute it would be the concern. So anyway, I think you also postulated asking if we might be interested or open to the metal shroud. And I guess I'm trying to weigh and I'm not going to give a definitive answer. I'm trying to weigh in my mind the balance between that kind of a solution, which doesn't go and change the original lines of the building, versus this, which is potentially changing the line of the buildings. And I appreciate the creativity of coming back with it. I think this, is a viable solution. It's just a matter of how to pick the best one. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Ms. Arias?
At this time, no comments.
Mr. Lavoie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Commissioner Winnick's comments, and I would like to add a few of my own. The problem is the exposed conduit, both vertical and horizontal. And the proposed solution is too complicated for the reasons that Commissioner Winnick expressed, that rebuilding the roof is a wretched expense and excess to a solution that should be simpler. I would suggest in the first go-around, we didn't ask that the panel on the right be concealed, just the exposed conduit. I would suggest that rather than extending the roof, that you just put a sloped plaster cap on what you're proposing and figure out some way of covering the vertical conduit with a similar type of structure. Plaster finish is a good idea. The corbels are a good idea. Keep it simple. So what I'm suggesting is just return the top of this with a sloped plaster top, rather than go up to not mess with the roof. Save you gobs of money.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Murray?
No, I think that's a great solution, because I also was not going to support the roof, and changing that line, which is worse. So I think this is a good solution that Bill came up with.
Ms. Boucher?
I just had my brain taken off what I was thinking. I think Bill's comments were very well taken. And if he were to make a motion, or if someone would, I'll be happy to second it.
I'd like to weigh in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Commish?
I support Commissioner LaVoie's comments wholeheartedly. It's a great solution.
Thank you. Well, Mr. LaVoie stepped out. I will restate a motion as I heard it, and that is to merely cover both the vertical and horizontal conduits, both with plaster element that does not go all the way to the roof and comes down to an appropriate height, such as the top of the door. And I see here that if it were to cover the conduit and go over as far as you had shown here, it would exceed the height of the existing tile, so it's going to just have to go right to that vertical. But you can work that out. But it's and then slope, as you saw, slope the top of the furring out plaster.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. We were wondering if we could get design approval and then come back on consent for final?
Yes. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Or somebody want to make that motion? Sorry.
Sure, I'll make the motion. That we approve the design with the following comments, or with the comments that you've already entered in.
Right.
With the final review subject to consent.
Is there a second to that
So
motion?
you're giving it project design approval and continued 2 weeks to consent? And you're giving it project design approval with any conditions or? Oh, just that it comes back to
Cover-
consent for final,
Horizontal and vertical conduit
be concealed?
be concealed.
With this solution, with the plaster solution.
I think Susan's out.
Sealed with plaster, the element would not go to the roof,
No.
is what you said. But to the appropriate height. And then it mentioned the top of the door.
That's up to the designer.
And then
to-
shape and taper as with plaster were the comments that you made.
Right.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, if you could restate those conditions.
Again?
Because we've had several people. Yeah.
I have project design approval and continue 2 weeks to the consent calendar with the comment that the applicant should cover the exposed conduit both horizontally and vertically with a plaster element that does not extend to the roof and that comes down to an appropriate height.
That's correct. Thank you.
Was there a second to the motion?
Not yet.
Okay, I just seconded it.
Who do you have as the maker of the motion?
I'm the maker.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, we have Winnick and Boucher. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries. Thank
Reason
you.
I don't have a design in front of me that I can approve.
Thank you. That's a good comment. Mr. Wolfman? What's,
Yes, we just need a nicely folded. And you want these photos? Yeah, and then that one.
there's one thing I can do, and that's fold it.
Well done.
Isn't that super?
Thank you.
So these are extra copies, right?
Never. Never. I bet you did. So did I.
I was homesick.
Oh, oh.
So my grandmother said, one day
We're taking a 5-minute recess.
I was 7 years old, and I said to my grandmother,
Gabrielle, you want to? Yes. Our last item, number 5, today is a conceptual review of 903 East Cabrillo Boulevard, and this is a proposal for a new hardscape sidewalk, tree location and removal, and landscape improvements on the city-owned parcel fronting along South Milpas and East Cabrillo Boulevard, and these are all associated with a major remodel of the Santa Barbara Inn. Mr. Suding, would you introduce yourself?
Philip Suding, landscape architect. The project, thank you. The project consists of a new sidewalk along the back of the curb at Milpas Street. The project site is public parkland. This is private hotel. That's the property line there. The proposal is to install a wider sidewalk along the back of the curb at Milpas, and these are the photographs here of the existing sidewalk. Originally, the commission saw a proposal for that sidewalk, which is tied to the modification for an interior setback. In other words, the applicant is required to install a better sidewalk along Milpas because of the modification here. The original proposal had a 2.5-foot wide parkway strip between the back of the curb and the edge of the sidewalk. We spoke with the Parks Department and Public Works Department, determined that that 2.5-foot wide parkway really wasn't substantial enough for supporting a street tree. So Public Works said, well, wait, maybe we can bring the sidewalk to the back of the curb, and then that way we can, we can save more of the trees that are along the sidewalk there. You can see in the photos several of the palm trees. There's probably an overall shot of the grouping of the palm trees. So we have been to the Street Tree Advisory Committee, and their recommendation is to approve the removal of 3 trees and the relocation of 3 trees. So there's only really 6 in question that we're dealing with. But by moving the sidewalk to the back of the curb, we were able to preserve an additional 5 trees. We basically took that out of the equation. So the Street Tree Advisory Committee saw the proposal, and they're going to recommend to Parks and Rec Commission for that removal/relocation plan that we have. So really, you're looking at the sidewalk elimination of the parkway.
Okay.
That was originally proposed and reviewed.
Are there any members of the public wishing to comment on this project at this time? Seeing none, bring it back to the commission for questions. Mr. Drury, any questions?
And of course, I have no questions. I have no questions.
Ms. Boucher?
I have no questions at this point.
Ms. Murray?
I do. Phil, would you point out the trees that are being
Relocated? Sure. It's this one here, which is a king palm. This one here, which is a tall Washingtonia Mexican fan palm. And then this small queen palm, which is about a 5-foot round trunk height. And I'm sorry, I meant to have brought photos with the numbers on the trees, and I didn't do that.
So they're relocated to.
Actually, the tall Washingtonia is going to be removed.
Yeah, right.
Arcana Phoenix, the king palm, is going to move over to this location. And then this queen palm currently exists too close to the concrete, and they wouldn't be able to dig it out. And so it's going to be removed. Though I should also additionally, I guess, point out that the other relocations are the two large Canary Island palms in front here. They're going to be relocated about 12 feet back towards the building. So.
Thank you. Our guest landscape critic is Mr. Gilliland. Do you have any questions, sir?
I do, thank you. Phil, could you repeat that briefly? You said the Phoenix are going to move back approximately?
They're going to move closer to the building, approximately 10, 12 feet.
10, 12 feet. Okay, and...
to frame the entry, the new entry.
Okay, and since this is the first time I'm seeing this, has the rest of this landscape plan been reviewed?
Yes.
Already, so we're just talking about the trees today?
Correct.
Okay, that's all questions.
We're talking mainly about the trees, but also very much so about the parkway.
Okay.
Because the trees are really under the purview of Street Tree Advisory Committee and Parks and Rec Commission because it is on park property. If it were different, if it weren't on park property, then that would be HLC's purview.
Okay, so we're basically eliminating the parkway where those Phoenix are currently?
No, the parkway would remain here.
Okay.
Along here, and the parkway elimination would be basically from the corner of the property line where we had it proposed down to the
I
corner.
see.
I don't know if Ms. Gantz has a copy of the old plan. I didn't bring one, but okay.
No.
Yeah, there was about a 2.5 foot wide parkway strip.
And the reason those Phoenix cannot be saved in that location, is it because of the required width of that sidewalk?
I have to have my phone on, so I apologize. Repeat the question, please.
The reason those Phoenix have to be relocated, is it because you need that extra sidewalk space? I guess what I'm looking at is that moving those palms 10 or 12 feet closer to the building is going to really push the canopy into the building itself.
It's part of that whole sidewalk configuration. It's also part of the pedestrian master plan circulation element to get that larger parkway in there, and those palms are sort of in the way if we configure the sidewalk the way it's supposed to be configured.
Okay.
I understand, and I am concerned as well about the proximity of the trees to the building. The building does step back in some locations, so that's going to help. Plus, the owner will be, trimming them, keeping them trimmed.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, that's all I have for questions. Thanks.
Ms. Arias?
Nothing.
Mr. Winnick?
Mr. Chair, I just have one question, just for my clarification.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Sooting. So the idea is really you're going between the driveway into the hotel to Cabrillo Boulevard is going to be wider.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. It's required to be 7 feet wide. it pinches down to as low as 5 feet in some locations to preserve some of the palm trees in place.
Terrific, thank you.
I have one question, that is, when you remove these 2 palms, what are you putting in that parkway?
I forget.
Okay.
Quite honestly, I forget. But
But
that's
it-
part.
but
But
it
that's
will be landscaped
Yes,
appropriately.
that is part of the approved plan for the hotel. So there's a landscape associated
Okay,
with
all right.
that as part of the. Oh, you know what? No, I'm sorry. I think I do have that.
Is there something under here?
Yeah. Sorry.
There it is.
Yeah. So what is there in there? There's aeonium, there's some kangaroo paws, and the ground cover is diamondia, and then we start up with these street trees. And I'm probably going to play with that spacing, work with Tim Downey on that spacing, but so we started with the street trees there. So that's part of the hotel approved plan.
Thank you. Are there any comments? Mr. Drury?
Yes. I think this is going to be a great benefit visually. It's going to open up that whole alley down to Brea Boulevard and East Beach. And I think it's a good thing to at least partly to screen the hotel, although I understand the plans are going to come before us, and as I remember, they were quite extensive to the hotel itself.
They are, yes. Okay, thank you. Ms. Boucher?
I have nothing to say this time.
Ms. Murray?
I guess I'm okay too. The 2 trees that I was most concerned about are being saved, and I get moved in, so I'm okay.
All right, Mr. Gilliland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree. I think it's nice that we're saving those trees, but I do have a major concern about pushing those so close to the building and that they're going to end up being one-sided trees. It'll be a maintenance issue, I guess, and I'm sure they're going to want to keep them off of their building. I don't know where else they could go, and if they were removed from that area, it would open it up quite a bit. So the buffer there is really helpful. Did you consider at all relocating those trees elsewhere and using a new, more slender, upright tree to help that screening?
Briefly did consider that. The owner felt that they're nice trees and that they're he wants to take advantage of them, so to speak. I mean, historically they've been there. I suppose we could use a more slender palm.
It's not going to have quite the buffer
and it doesn't really have the impact
Right.
that this is a pretty lack of a better word, this is a pretty bold building, and we really wanted to have a bold statement there at the entry, so that's kind of how we arrived at keeping the Canary Island.
I guess I would look for input from other commission members, but just so everyone's aware that it looks like you'll probably lose a third of the foliage on that tree.
You have to
against the.
Sorry, go ahead.
Against the building, apart from where you said that it sort of steps back in a little bit, but.
May I respond?
Yes,
I agree with that concern, and that's one of the reasons we picked this location is because it does kind of step back or jog back, so there's a little bit of more opportunity there. And then two, at this location, the garage opening is there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when the palm gets taller, the palms grow. As a landscape architect, I have that concern, but I also am comfortable with the maintenance and the owner's ability to make those palms work.
Okay.
If the owner's in favor of it,
Sure.
he must certainly can imagine that maintenance and...
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm fine with that. I think that's a good explanation.
Ms. Arias?
No, I think the points have been well covered.
Is there a motion?
This is comments only because it still needs approval by the Parks and Rec Commission and City Council.
All right.
So you can just continue it indefinitely, and then he'll come back after those two approvals are granted, and he'll come back here for, prelim and final, or project design approval and final approval.
Is there a motion for an indefinite continuance? Second by Arias. Motion by Boucher, second by Arias.
And can we also somehow note generally positive comments?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
So
It's to be continued indefinitely with positive comments as presented. Mr. Arias?
I would add that the applicant has indicated that the owner is aware of the maintenance problems of the trees. I think that's an important point in their new location.
The maintenance issues as opposed to problems.
Whatever works is fine.
All right. You got all that, I assume? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second?
All in favor? Adjourned.